You have been lied to for centuries. What if Jerusalem is not the city it claims to be at all? Why was it renamed only in the 15th century? Why did the three greatest religions of the world suddenly converge on 1 square kilometer? Why is King David depicted on Russian churches? What is the connection between biblical Jerusalem and Vladimir Rus? And the most disturbing question, why was it necessary in the 19th century to create a new sacred geography from scratch, dividing the city into religious quarters that never existed? Subscribe to the channel. Ahead is something that will make you look at the holy city in a new way. Imagine, you arrive in a city you have heard about since childhood. A city where every stone is soaked with the history of 3 world religions. A place where the feet of prophets have stepped, where biblical events unfolded, where the destinies of peoples were decided. You are ready to pronounce its sacred name aloud, Jerusalem. But the locals look at you with bewilderment and calmly correct you. You mean Al-Quds? Al-Quds. This is exactly how the Arabs call this city. But it is not only about the Arabs. Until the 15th century, most of the known world knew this place by this very name. And only starting from the 15th century did Christian Europe actively impose another name, Jerusalem, gradually displacing the former from documents, maps, and people's memory. Why was renaming necessary? Let's look at the timeline. The 15th century is the era of great discoveries, a time when the first detailed maps of the world were drawn, when a unified geography was formed. It was precisely in these decades that the inscription Jerusalem appeared on cartographic sheets where Al-Quds had stood for centuries. Just a cosmetic change? Or something more? One version sounds provocative. The biblical Jerusalem, the very city of kings David and Solomon, was located in a completely different place. And the settlement we know today as the Holy Capital was chosen in the 15th century for a completely new role. To become the spiritual center for religious systems that were only then forming their final outlines. Look further. The 15th century, renaming. The 16th century, or more precisely the year 1538, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent erects powerful fortress walls around the old city. As if someone first decided on paper that this very place would become a sacred center, and then physically embodied the decision in stone and mortar, enclosing the area with a strong perimeter of defensive fortifications. And here is what is striking. Inside this tiny fenced area, covering only 1 square kilometer, all the main shrines of the 3 largest religions on the planet have been gathered. For Jews, the Temple Mount with its famous supporting western wall, a remnant of the Great Temple. For Christians, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the resurrection took place. For Muslims, the majestic Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa mosques on the top of the same Temple Mount, from where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. Everything in one place. Convenient to the point of suspicion. So compact that you can walk around it in an hour, as if someone designed the sacred geography from scratch, placing religious objects on the plan like pieces on a chessboard, following a certain design. But there is a detail that destroys this too perfect picture. A detail that lies not on the surface, but deep underground. Literally. Walk through the streets of the Old Town. Look closely at the buildings. The windows of the first floors go down, half hidden below the modern level of the pavement. What was once an entrance door is now 1.5 to 2 meters below the asphalt. These are not isolated cases of reconstruction or redevelopment. This is a picture that repeats systematically, block after block, street after street. Go down the stairs into one of the small restaurants or shops that now operate in the basement premises. You will find yourself in a spacious hall with high vaulted ceilings, about 3 to 4 meters to the top of the arch. The walls are laid with quality stone masonry. Elegant doorways have been preserved. This is clearly not a basement as we understand it, not a technical room. This is a full-fledged floor of the building, designed for living. But it is underground, covered with soil, which lies on top in a thick layer. Archaeologists are constantly conducting excavations in this city. Each season brings new discoveries. They go down 5, 10, 15 meters from the modern surface and find entire streets, houses, and market rows. A Roman paved road from the 1st century was uncovered at a depth of 15 meters. It was completely buried under the soil, with all the columns, entrances to shops, and sidewalks made of polished stone. Now ask yourself a simple question. Where did so much soil come from on the mountain plateau? Jerusalem is not located in a lowland, not in a river valley where silt could have been deposited by spring floods of a river, not on a seashore where storms and tides could have washed up sand and clay. The city is situated on a plateau in the Judean mountains, at an elevation from 650 to 840 meters above sea level. This is a highland. According to all laws of physics, dirt and soil should flow down from here, be washed away by rains along the slopes, carried off by winds. But in Jerusalem, this law does not work. The soil did not flow downwards. On the contrary, it lies in a thick layer on top of the plateau, and continues to lie there to this day. A multi-meter layer of clay, sand, and gravel covers the ancient structures. Moreover, this is not a gradual accumulation of garbage and waste over centuries of human activity. The cultural layer lacks what is usually found there: broken pottery, animal bones, ashes from campfires, remains of housing organic matter. Here is clean soil, dense clay, sand with impurities, like after a mud flow or debris avalanche. Only there is no source for such a flow here. Compare with Prague. There too, the first floors of old houses have gone underground. But Prague has an explanation, albeit a questionable one. The Vltava River repeatedly overflowed its banks, flooding the city. A local legend claims that the residents themselves filled in the lower levels to escape constant floods. The version is strange, but at least there is a source of water and mud, a full-flowing river. And in Jerusalem, there is not even that. The city is on a height. The area is arid, the soil is rocky, infertile. There is little precipitation, and yet a multi-meter layer covers the ancient streets and houses. The laws of nature seem to have ceased to operate. The dirt did not go down the slopes, but rose up and lay in an even layer over the city, as if a giant wave brought it here and covered everything from above in one motion. But what wave is capable of rising to a height of almost a kilometer above sea level? Archaeologists pass over this paradox in silence. They carefully describe the found shards, create datings based on the ceramics, publish excavation reports. But no one asks the direct question: how did these Roman streets end up buried under 15 meters of soil on top of a mountain plateau? And one more oddity catches the eye. While ordinary residential buildings are buried up to the windows, sacred structures stand on the surface. The Temple Mount is not buried under the soil. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is partially buried, but not completely hidden. The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque rise above the city at their original levels. It turns out the mud mass was selective. It carefully bypassed the shrines, but covered everything else? Or the explanation lies on the surface. The shrines were built after the mud buried the ancient city, erected at a new ground level on top of the buried ruins. And that means they are much younger than official chronologies claim. The first indication of this relative youth is not found in the temples, but in the oldest structure of the city, in the very wall attributed to King Herod, the western wall of the Temple Mount. The Jews call it the Wailing Wall and consider it the holiest place of their faith. People come here to pray from all over the world. Notes with requests to the Almighty are placed in the cracks between the stones, a place of holiness, antiquity, and memory of the destroyed Temple of Solomon. But stop. Do not rush to touch the sacred stones. Just look at the wall as an engineering structure. Set aside religious awe. Look at the masonry, the size of the blocks, the surface treatment. What is in front of you? 3 completely different types of stonework. 3 technological levels superimposed vertically. At the base of the wall lie gigantic stone blocks, not just large, monstrous in size. Some weigh more than 50 tons each. The length of one block can reach 12 meters. These are not stones lifted by hand or rolled on logs. These are megaliths. Approach close to the base. Look closely at the joints between these giants. They are fitted so tightly that you cannot even slip a thin banknote between the edges. No cement mortar. No clay binding. Stone to stone, edge to edge, with a precision that is unattainable even for modern construction technologies. Try to imagine the entire process of creating such masonry. You need to cut a block weighing 50 tons out of the rock. Process all its surfaces so that they are perfectly flat and exactly match the neighboring blocks. Deliver this giant to the construction site, and the nearest quarry is several kilometers away. Lift the block to the required height. Install it with millimeter precision so that it fits without a gap to the neighbor. The official history claims, all this was done by King Herod in the 1st century BC during the fortification of the Temple Mount. With what mechanisms? What tools were used to process the stone? How was it transported? There are no answers. There is only the name, Herod, attached to the megaliths, which are clearly created by technologies of a completely different order. Above begins a different masonry. The stones are noticeably smaller, about 10 to 15 tons each. The workmanship is no longer flawless. Tool marks are visible. The fitting is good, professional, but not precise. In some places, you can slip a coin between the blocks. In some spots, mortar is used to secure the joints. This is a different technology, accessible to medieval craftsmen, not requiring impossible solutions. Labor-intensive, but achievable by ordinary construction teams. And finally, the structure is crowned with masonry made of relatively small stones. Each weighs from several tens of kilograms to a ton. The processing is rough, the surfaces uneven. The fitting is careless, the joints generously filled with mortar, which in places falls out. This is already a completely different level of construction work. This is something that any team of masons without special skills can manage. This is repair, extension, patching of damages. 3 tiers, 3 eras. 3 different civilizations whose efforts overlapped in one wall. And here a paradox appears that destroys the entire official version. The higher you climb the wall, the more primitive the technology becomes. The closer to our time, the rougher the stonework, the lower the skill. This is technological regression, moving backward, degradation of skills. How to explain such a difference within the framework of a single construction project of King Herod? Why start with megaliths requiring incredible effort and inaccessible technologies, and end with rough masonry made of small stones? It is more logical to assume the opposite. The lower tier is the remains of the oldest structure, created by a civilization that possessed technologies for processing and moving stone, which we can only guess about. The middle tier is an attempt by medieval builders to superimpose and strengthen the already existing foundation. The upper tier is late repair work from the last centuries. 3 layers, 3 times. And the oldest of them is the one at the bottom. The one about whose creators neither chronicles nor legends have been preserved. Archaeologists uncovered a section of the wall below the current ground level. It turned out that the megalithic masonry extends several meters deeper. Beneath what was considered the foundation, even more massive blocks were found. The total height of the wall turned out to be significantly greater than the visible part. And again, the question of the soil arises. If the megalithic foundation is hidden several meters underground, it means that this backfilling occurred after the construction of the lower tier. The builders of these giant blocks saw their wall entirely, from the base to the top. The soil came later and buried part of their creation. It turns out to be a sequence of events. First, a megalithic foundation is erected, an unknown civilization, an unknown era. Then a catastrophe occurs, which buries the lower part of the wall under a thick layer of soil. After that, at the new ground level, medieval craftsmen complete the wall with large blocks. Later, repairs are carried out using small stones and abundant mortar. Herod has nothing to do with this. His name was simply attributed to an already existing structure in order to somehow fit the inexplicable megaliths into the familiar chronological framework. But if the Western Wall is not the creation of King Herod, then what does it actually represent? Part of which building is it? Who are its real creators, and why was such a cyclopean platform needed? The answer may lie not in the wall itself, but in what it supports, the Temple Mount, and in what was built on this mount in later times. These megaliths are only the foundation. Other structures have been erected above them for centuries. But the loudest substitution, the most massive falsification, awaits us not here, not in the ancient stones of the retaining wall. It is located in the main shrine of the Christian world, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. These megaliths are only the foundation. Other structures have been erected above them for centuries. But the loudest substitution awaits us not here, but in the main shrine of the Christian world, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the place where millions of pilgrims flock. Here, according to tradition, the resurrection took place. Here, every year, the miracle of the holy fire occurs. But before crossing the threshold, stop at the entrance. Look at the facade. Do you see the doorway? It is located at the middle height of the first floor. This is the modern entrance. And to the right and lower, another opening, bricked up. The former entrance, which turned out to be too low. Look closely at the masonry around the bricked-up portal. The outlines of a high arch are distinguishable, about 4 meters. This was a full-fledged entrance portal, a majestic door to the sacred space. But this entrance is now half buried in the ground. It was necessary to make a new one, higher, where the windows used to be. To the right of the facade, another bricked-up opening is visible. Another portal, completely bricked up. Why were 3 entrances needed? And why were 2 closed? The official legend says, there were 2 doors, but Sultan Saladin ordered one to be sealed. Since then, the keys have been kept in 2 Muslim families. The tradition has been passed down from father to son for over 800 years. The story is beautiful, but it explains the sealing of 1 entrance only. 2 were sealed, and a 3rd was made not in the place of the original doors, but higher up. The building physically sank into the ground, and it had to be adapted to the new reality. Let's go inside. The ceiling height is 10 to 12 meters, excessive for people of the Middle Ages who were 160 to 70 centimeters tall. The columns are about 2 meters in diameter. It is impossible for 3 people to surround them. Why such massiveness for a building about 20 meters wide? Everything speaks of other scales, of people of different stature, or of another original purpose. Official history. The temple was founded in the year 326 by Queen Helena. She found the cave of the tomb, which no one knew about for 300 years, and ordered a church to be built. Then the Persians destroyed it. It was restored. Muslims destroyed it. Restored again. Crusaders rebuilt it anew in the years 1130 to 1149. Too many destructions and restorations. A convenient scheme explaining any discrepancies in the architecture. But there are details that do not fit even into this scheme. The bell tower was built between 1160 and 1180, almost simultaneously with the church. This is unusual. Usually bell towers are added centuries later. In Rus, the church is from the 12th century, the bell tower from the 15th to 17th. The difference is in centuries. And here the bell tower is built within a decade? Too rushed for the Middle Ages. Second, graffiti on the stones. Hundreds of crosses carved on the walls. Historians explain, these were marks left by pilgrim crusaders. But imagine, you enter a sacred church and the first thing you do is take out a sword to scratch a cross? In a holy place? Such behavior is more like builder's marks. And exactly the same crosses are found on the white stone churches of Vladimir Suzdal Rus, the Dmitrievsky Cathedral, the Church of the Intercession on the Neural. These marks are everywhere. Coincidence? Or a single school of craftsmen? And this is not the only connection between this city and Rus. The connection goes back to the legend about who founded this place. King David conquered the city and made it the capital. His son Solomon built the temple. Christ himself traces his lineage back to David. But images of David are found not only here, they exist in Russia, on the facades of the oldest Vladimir churches. The Dmitrievsky Cathedral, 1194-1197 years. On the facade, a relief of King David among lions and griffins. Why did Russian princes decorate churches with images of the ancient Jewish king? Or are King David and the Prince of the Vladimir land one historical figure, separated by chronology by millennia? Look at the parallels. David conquers the city. Russian princes expand their territories, found cities. David's son builds a temple. Under Yuri's grandchildren, white stone cathedrals are constructed. In the city itself, there is the Tower of David. But its architecture points to the 15th, 16th centuries. The tower was built 2,500 years after the king passed away? Or did David live much later? Another parallel. Prince Vladimir the Baptizer and his mother Olga are the baptizers of Rus. Constantine the Great and his mother Helena, they made Christianity the religion of the empire. Helena founded a temple. Two pairs, mother and son. Two stories, the baptism of a people. What if the biblical story is a reworked medieval chronicle, where events of the 12th, 15th centuries were shifted back by millennia? Then this city is not the ancient capital from the times of David. It is a medieval settlement that in the 15th, 16th centuries was given the status of an ancient capital, renamed, surrounded by walls, and filled with legends. Why? To create a common sacred center for three religions, to give them a common point of reference, to connect disparate cults into a single chain. The place was chosen not by chance. Megaliths already stood here. There were traces of an ancient civilization here that needed to be hidden under new legends. But even the most skillful legends are destroyed when photographs appear. The 1850s, an era when photography was just spreading. Photographers come to the sacred center. What were they supposed to see? Majestic temples, crowds of pilgrims, a thriving spiritual center. What do they see? Ruins. Photographs from the 1850s. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, in a semi-ruined state. The domes have collapsed, the walls are cracked. Scaffolding holds the structure from collapsing. Around, debris, garbage, neglect. This is 50 years after the fire of 1808, which supposedly destroyed the interior. According to the official version, the church was quickly restored in 2 years. But the photographs show, in 1858, the church looks as if it had not been repaired for decades. There is no fresh masonry, only ancient walls, ready to fall. Look wider, at the old quarter. Complete devastation. Houses with collapsed roofs. Streets overgrown with grass. No crowds of pilgrims. No bazaars. This is not the sacred center of three religions. This is an abandoned place that has been forgotten. The city is empty. Only by the 1860s to 1880s does large-scale reconstruction begin. Domes are being built, streets are cleared, houses are restored. But this is not the restoration of an ancient center. This is the creation of a new one. The magazine World Illustration describes, Patriarch Nectarios from 1664 to 1719 carried out a complete reconstruction of the temple. The work lasted almost 60 years. For comparison, the Church of the Intercession on the Nurl was built in 1 year. The Dmitrievsky Cathedral in 3 years. Or the construction of the 1660s. Is it the erection of a new temple on the site of the ruins? Then the fire of 1808. The stone building turned to ashes. How can stone burn to the ground? Photos from the 1850s. These are not ruins after a fire. This is a construction site abandoned halfway, or just beginning. And it is precisely after these destructions that the division of the city into religious quarters begins. Today, the old quarter is divided into 4 parts: Armenian, Christian, Jewish, Muslim. But this division appeared only in the 19th century. Before that, the city was simply a city. People of different faiths lived side by side without strict boundaries. And in the 19th century, suddenly a division appears. Each religion is allocated a section. Borders arise. Imagine, you are creating a sacred center from scratch. You give each religion its own shrine. You place everything within a kilometer. You divide it into zones of influence. This is not natural development. This is design. Social engineering. The city walls were built in the year 1538, but the walls of the Temple Mount inside are megaliths, a technology that does not fit into any century. What if the Temple Mount was not built for the city, but found ready-made? A remnant of an ancient structure to which the rest was later attached. Then the sequence becomes clear. An ancient civilization builds a platform. A catastrophe buries the surroundings. Settlers find megaliths and build a city. In the 15th, 16th centuries, they rename it and surround it with walls. In the 19th century, after destruction, they restore it and divide it into parts. The division of the city is the final stage in creating a sacred geography, where each religion receives its place. Why do megaliths surpass everything humanity has built? Why is the city on the plateau buried under 15 meters? Why do photographs show an empty city instead of a thriving center? Why are all events squeezed into 1 kilometer? Why was there a renaming in the 15th century? Why was the division only in the 19th? There are no answers. There is an official version that ignores the questions, and there are facts that do not fit into it. Buried floors, all over the world. Megaliths, on all continents. Fires of the 19th century, in dozens of cities. Reconstructions, everywhere. This city is the central element of the system. It connects 3 religions. It provides a common point of reference. By recognizing the sanctity of the place, billions recognize the entire chronology. But beneath the feet of the pilgrims is a buried city, covered with dirt that should not be there, built on megaliths of unknown creators, renamed, rebuilt, filled with legends, a city mystery, a city substitution, a city that is silent. I do not claim to know the truth. I do not insist on my correctness, and do not demand that this version be accepted as the only true one. I am merely laying out the facts before you. Megaliths that cannot be explained by the technologies attributed to their eras. Soil on a mountain plateau where it physically should not be. 19th century photographs with deserted ruins instead of a sacred center. Buried temple entrances. 3 technological layers in 1 wall. All of this exists. All of this can be seen, touched, measured. Beyond that, the choice is yours. To accept a convenient explanation from textbooks, or to ask uncomfortable questions. Truth does not come ready-made. It is composed of dozens of small details that do not fit into the overall picture. Look wider. Compare. Correlate events at different ends of the world. Look for connections even where you are told there are none. Subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click the bell so you don't miss new investigations. There are still many mysteries and discoveries ahead. We will continue to look for clues, ask uncomfortable questions, explore what official science avoids. Because the truth is always nearby. You just need to want to see it.